Hello, everyone. Got top 10 Amish jokes for you today. So, an Amish family takes a day off to visit New York City. They drive their wagon all the way into Times Square because they want to find a hotel with a room overlooking all of the cool sights they have never seen. The husband drops his wife and kids off at the front door of a super fancy hotel, and he drives off to go look for a parking spot. His wife is enamored with everything she is experiencing. There are blinking lights and giant advertisements and so many sounds she has never heard. She eventually heads toward the hotel lobby and is startled by the doors that open automatically as soon as she walks near. In the lobby, she notices there are so many machines that do seemingly magical things. She sees a few people approach a machine, put a cup underneath and press a button, and it fills the cup with steaming hot coffee. She thinks to herself, "I've got to try this." So she walks up to the machine, inserts a cup, and presses the button. Sure enough, there's hot, delicious coffee. She also sees a machine where you put in a few quarters, and it gives you a pre-packaged snack or soda. She is in awe, so she tries it. After a few dollars, and pressing a few buttons, she has a Coke and a bag of cookies. She can't believe how awesome this place is. To her, it seems like they have a machine that can do anything. After getting a room, the person at the front desk points her and her kids toward the elevators. Having no idea what they do, but too embarrassed to say, she walks over and decides to watch and see what happens. Yet again, to her surprise, this machine seems to do the impossible. As she watches, a frail 80-year-old man presses the button. The doors shut, and she is left waiting to see what happens. 30 seconds later, a 25-year-old, buff and gorgeous man walks out of the little room. The woman looks to her son and says, "I think I know what this does. Go get your father." So, an Amish woman and her daughter were riding in an old buggy one cold, blustery day when the daughter said, "My hands are freezing cold." The mother replied, "Put them between your legs. Your body heat will warm them up." The daughter did, and her hands warmed up. The next day, the daughter was riding with her boyfriend, who said, "My hands are freezing cold." The girl replied, "Put them between my legs. The warmth of my body will warm them up." He did, and warmed his hands. The following day, the boyfriend was again in the buggy with the daughter. He said, "My nose is cold." The girl replied, "Put it between my legs. The warmth of my body will warm it up." He did, and warmed his nose. The next day, the boyfriend was again driving with the daughter, and he said, "My willy is frozen solid." The following day, the daughter was driving in the buggy with her mother again, and she says to her mother, "Have you ever heard of a willy?" Slightly concerned, the mother said, "Why, yes. Why do you ask?" The daughter replies, "They make one heck of a mess when they defrost, don't they?" So one sunny afternoon, as an Amish lady was gracefully trotting down a serene country road in her trusty horse and buggy, she found herself in an unexpected predicament. Suddenly, the flashing lights of a police car appeared in her rearview mirror, and she knew that she was being pulled over by a stern-looking cop. Rolling down her window, the officer approached the buggy and spoke politely. "Mom, I'm not going to ticket you, but I do have to issue you a warning. You see, you have a broken reflector on your buggy." The Amish lady, with her characteristic humility, responded,
"Oh, thank you, officer."
"I'll make sure to let my husband, Jacob, know as soon as I get home." The cop nodded in approval, but there was another matter that weighed heavily on his conscience. He cleared his throat and said, "That's fine, Mom. Another thing, though, I don't like the way that one rein loops across the horse's back and around one of his balls. I consider that animal abuse. That's cruelty to animals. Have your husband take care of that right away." Later that day, the lady arrived back home and eagerly shared her encounter with the cop with her beloved husband, Jacob. Concern etched across his face, Jacob inquired, "Well, dear, what exactly did he say?" The Amish lady hesitated for a moment. Before recounting the officer's words, he said, "The reflector is broken." With a confident and determined look, Jacob replied, "What else did he mention?" The Amish lady paused, scratching her head, and admitted, "I'm not sure, Jacob. Something about the emergency brake." So a sports car is driving in Amish country. He skids on the road and crashes into a ditch. He gets out unharmed and looks at his car in dismay. A few minutes later, an Amish man comes riding by in a horse and buggy. The Amish man stops and asks, "Would you like some help?" The man quickly says he would, and just as quickly the Amish man dismounts and ties his horse to the car. "All right, Nellie, pull." The horse remains motionless. "Now you, Chester, pull." The horse again does nothing. "Come, Blackie, pull." Finally, the horse takes some steps and effortlessly pulls the car out of the ditch and back onto the road. "Wah, Blackie, that's good," the Amish man calls, and the horse stops. The motorist shakes the Amish man's hand and says, "I really appreciate the help, but why did you call that horse by 3 different names?" "Oh," the Amish man says, "that horse is blind. He's easily strong enough to do it, you see. But if he thought he was doing it alone, he wouldn't even try." So an Amish man is driving his horse-drawn cart when he gets to a toll road. The toll keeper says, "That will be $10, please." The Amish man says, "I thought that was only for motor vehicles." "No," says the toll keeper. "All vehicles, no exceptions." So the Amish man turns around, goes a ways back up the road, takes the horse out of its harness, puts the horse in the driver's seat, puts himself in the harness, and pulls the cart back to the toll gate. Again, the gatekeeper says, "That will be $10, please." The Amish man gestures over his shoulder. "Talk to the driver." So an Amish man, a hippie, and Jesus walk into a bar. An old man at the bar turns to them, and surprised, he asks, "Why is it that 3 men that are so different from each other traveling together?" The hippie says, "I want to learn the ways of the Amish to be freed from materialism." The Amish man says, "I've lost faith in my people. I want to learn the traditional ways of Christ." And Jesus says, "I go where I'm needed." The old man nods. "Okay, that makes sense, but how did you come to meet?" The hippie says, "I was walking along this stretch of road because my van broke down." The Amish man says, "This was the only road to follow when I left my community." And Jesus replies, "I go where I'm needed." The old man nods again and asks, "Well, why did you decide to come into this bar?" The hippie says, "I go where the Amish man goes." The Amish man says, "I follow Jesus." And Jesus says, "I go where I'm needed." The old man, still confused, looks to Jesus and goes, "Well, why are you needed here?" Jesus sighs, "My shift starts at 5. So 3 Amish ladies are in a field picking potatoes. Their husbands' names are Jake, Jacob, and Jakey. They would always get confused. So one day they decided to nickname them. Mabel said, "Let's name them after Soda Pop." The other 2 said, "What do you mean?" Mabel said she would go first and said, "I'll call my Jacob 7 Up because he has 7 inches and it's always up." Oh, the other two loved this idea. So Ella went next and said, I'll call my Jake Mountain Dew because he takes me to the mountain, and he sure can do me. And they laughed. The last lady, Margaret, thinks a minute and said, I'll call my husband, Jack Daniels. Mabel responded, That's not a soda pop, that's a liquor. That's my Jackie, exclaimed Margaret. So, an Amish couple are in their horse and buggy going down the road during a blizzard. The woman spots a skunk lying in the road. She turns to her husband and says, Honey, pull over. He must be freezing. So the husband pulls over and the wife gets out and gets the skunk and get on their way again. After about 5 minutes, she says to her husband, Oh, honey, he is still shivering. What should I do? The husband replied, Oh, put him up your dress. He'll be warm then. The wife complains, Oh, honey, what about the smell?
So the husband responds, Pinch his tiny nose. He'll be okay.
So 2 Amish women are out picking potatoes in a field. The first one holds out 1 potato in each hand in front of her while studying and balancing them. The second woman asks her, What are you doing with those potatoes? The first woman responds, They remind me of my husband's balls. They're that big? Exclaimed the second woman. No, responded the first woman. They're that dirty. So a couple of Amish girls visit New York City. They decide to taste hot dogs for the first time. They buy 2 hot dogs wrapped in foil from a street vendor and sit on a nearby bench, eager to experience this new food for the first time. The first girl opens the foil, blushes with embarrassment, and shyly asks the second girl, What part of the dog did you get?